Hello, everybody. Welcome. So glad you could make it today. And I hope everybody is keeping safe and we can do this sometime again in the future in person. But it's nice to be able to do this digitally today. So Akari contacted me a couple of weeks back and asked me to do this and to give like an introduction to Sliabh Luachra, the place and the music and the traditions of the area. So thank you for that, and I'm delighted to do that. I'm a student of this myself. I'm learning a lot. I grew up around the area, but I'm continuously learning more and more about it. And the more I find out, the more that I realize I don't know. So I feel like it's an ongoing lifelong learning journey. So let me tell you some of what I do know already. And if you have questions, like Akari had said, make sure to post them in the chat, or we'll stop a little early before the end as well for some questions and answers. If I know the answer, I'll go for it. If I don't know the answer, I'll definitely research it and find out, or try to find out for you. So all right, with that, let's start. So Sliabh Luachra, let's start with what that is and what it means. So as you can see with the photograph here, you can see some farmland, and it's got lots of these grassy, long grass. It's rushes. They're called rushes. And it's not very good farmland. So Sliabh, the word Sliabh, and you pronounce it like almost like sleeve of your shirt, sleeve. That means mountain in Ireland, yama in Japanese, I think. So Sliabh means mountain, and Luachra is rushes, pronounced Luachra, Luachra, and Sliabh Luachra, then put it together, it means the rushy mountain. So this whole area of Sliabh Luachra is upland, it's mountainous area, and it's not very good farmland at all. But that's what the actual words mean, Sliabh Luachra. All right, so if we move on down, oftentimes I get this question, and you can see Ireland here, and I come from Cork, and Sliabh Luachra is more over here, this direction, Cork and Kerry border. But often when people visit, like a Kerry here visits Ireland, and they're wondering where is Sliabh Luachra, and it doesn't show up. If you Google Maps, search Sliabh Luachra, you won't find it on Google Maps as a place. So it's an interesting idea to think about where Sliabh Luachra is. So I grew up here in Nad, in County Cork. So down here, this Duhallow is a barony. It's an area in Cork, and over into Kerry. The Cork and Kerry, Duhallow goes around that near the Allow River, and this whole area would be known as Sliabh Luachra here. So let me tell you a little bit about what I found out when I went looking up how do you explain where Sliabh Luachra actually is. So I heard, so it's in general, it's in that area there, where that green square is about. So I would be maybe considered even a little bit further east than Sliabh Luachra, where I grew up. But it depends on who you talk to, and listening to lots of people talk about it, there's no precise political boundary, like, county boundary like Cork and Kerry. It crosses over those boundaries. So it's some as people have said, it's a state of mind. It's more about I'll talk a bit more about that in a second. That's a funny saying that comes up about when people ask where is it. The main towns, or the main villages and areas of that people would think about when they think about Sliabh Luachra would be Knocknagree, Ballydesmond, Guineguilla. That's where my father came from. Guineguilla there, are pretty close, Golan. Castle Island, which would be more over here actually, just outside of this map here. And Newmarket. Newmarket here would be a great place for music. And Kanturk, there where you have Jackie Daly's from Kanturk, and Newmarket with Scully's Bar there would be very famous for Sliabh Luachra music. So when I was looking it up, one nice idea that came out of it when I was listening to a program on it just this week, actually, or last week, was that it's more about the people who subscribe to the music and the traditions, and the spirit of the music of the area. So rather than actually a physical location. So if you like Sliabh Luachra music and you play it and you enjoy it, then you can be considered as part of Sliabh Luachra. So it might be more in your head than an actual physical place. So in thinking about that, maybe here in Japan, at some of the sessions, if we were playing a lot of the Sliabh Luachra music, we might even consider ourselves in Sliabh Luachra at that time. And some of the people that kind of talked about these ideas are Kieran McMahon and Matt Cranich, if you wanted to look them up and listen to them talk a bit more about Sliabh Luachra. So at the end as well, I'm going to share this slideshow with Akari, and she can share it with everybody on the website or through an email, so that I've put lots of links at the end that you might like to go yourself and do some further research at the end, because this is a very brief introduction, and if you want to get deeper into it, a deeper knowledge, then you might want to look up some more yourself afterwards. So where I grew up, NAD, and like geographically, NAD is a bit a little further east than what may be considered like Sliabh Luachra, but the music of Sliabh Luachra is very, very popular in NAD. All the music I would have learned growing up would have been Sliabh Luachra music. Dan O'Connor or Dan Hurley would have played many sessions in NAD pub growing up, and I would have heard that and would have been an influence. And also where I learned music, I just wanted to show a little bit about this before I start going into it further as well. This map here you'll find on Johnny O'Leary's, the book of Johnny O'Leary's music, which I have referenced at the end as well. This is a great resource for tunes from the area, and you'll find that kind of general map of Sliabh Luachra on that book as well, but it's there on the slide if you wanted to have a look. So where I grew up, NAD, this is NAD Music Centre over here in rural Ireland, in just east of that Sliabh Luachra area, and it opened up in 1998, and the director is a great friend and neighbour, Christine O'Shea. Even though we have the same family name, we're not related, just great friends through the music. So she opened up this little music school, and as a result, a lot of children in the area were able to learn Irish music, and we learned a lot of slides and polkas and jigs and reels that were very much local tunes. So it was great for us to do that. And the spirit of that centre was really nice as well. Here's a quote from Christine talking about her whole philosophy, and the idea was to help to appreciate the true value of music. And I think this captures the spirit. You'll see a quote later on from Dan O'Connell, who had, God rest him, had a great Irish dancing pub in Knocknagree, and it was the same kind of spirit, bringing people together for enjoyment and enjoying the session, and that's what it's all about. More so than anything else, it's about coming together and enjoying. So that's the kind of spirit we grew up in. So here you can see, Akari was wondering where it was. Now we move on, and we've got Uena's son here, and she's wondering who were some of the influential Sliabh Luachra style musicians. So when you think of areas in Ireland, and when you think of styles of an area, like for example, if you're thinking of Sligo fiddles, of course, straight away you're going to think of the great Coleman and all of those. Well, we have our own heroes in Sliabh Luachra as well. And if you haven't heard of any of these people, I strongly recommend looking them up and having a good listen, and you'll get a good feel for the sound of the area and what it's like. So we'll start with a few anyway, and I'll tell you a little bit about them. So Cal O'Callaghan. Cal O'Callaghan was the O'Callaghans of Doon. You'd find many Doon reels called the Doon reel, and or many tunes of the area as well called Callaghans or O'Callaghans, and they all come from this Callahan family. And so Cal Callahan would have been Padraig O'Keefe's mother's brother, I guess. Padraig O'Keefe's uncle, Callahan. So I wanted to play a little bit of a tune. Callahan's Hornpipe, Cal Callahan's Hornpipe. That is a question that comes up often is, is it all just slides and polkas? Is it all just slides and polkas that you play in Sliabh Luachra? And no, it's not. I mean, slides and polkas are very prominent tunes, and we love to play slides and polkas, but there's also a lot more to the musical repertoire of the area, like hornpipes, jigs, and reels, especially reels. There's some great reels out of Sliabh Luachra that people play. So it's not just slides and polkas. So I'll play a little bit of this Cal Callahan's Hornpipe for you. I love that tune, and you'll hear many more if you look up Cal Callahan on thesession.org or anywhere like that. You'll find so many Callahan's tunes. I can see something in the chat there from CCÉ to everyone, but it's in Japanese, so I don't I'll leave that one until the end, and Akari can change it for me or whatever, or translate it. Corny Drew, going way back. There's a great resource, and if you wanted to learn more about all of these people, it's a fabulous resource called RushyMountain.com. Rushy Mountain, as you've seen from the start, in Sliabh Luachra, the Rushy Mountain, and it teaches you all about the people of the area, and I've learned a lot from that as I'm learning. It's funny, when I learned more about Sliabh Luachra music when I moved away from home than I ever knew when I was living at home. I think you get an appreciation for things when you're away. So I'm looking forward to finding out more when I go back. But this man, Corny Drew, anyway, was before Padraig O'Keefe and before Tom Billy and people. He would have taught those. So the people that normally come into people's head as the superstars of Sliabh Luachra are Padraig O'Keefe and Dennis Murphy and Julie Clifford. But the music was handed on down to them from Corny Drew is one of the people credited with that. So you can learn more about him on RushyMountain.com as well. Tom Billy then learned from Corny Drew, and Tom Billy, I think one of his very famous tunes was it's Tom Billy's Jig. But like if you look up Tom Billy's, there's so many tunes called Tom Billy's as well. So I wanted to play a little bit of Tom Billy's Jig for you. So you'll notice the first two tunes that I've talked about today they're not slides and polkas, because the repertoire of Sliabh Luachra is much wider than just slides and polkas. So this jig is a popular one of Tom Billy's. I think many people will recognize it. I'll just give it a short run through. So Tom Billy, learned from, I think he got polio when he was young, God help him. And as a result, he went blind and he couldn't see. And I think he had some other effects after as well, that life was difficult for him. But he used to teach music around, and he became known as a great fiddle player and I think whistle player as well. And that jig is a beautiful jig on the whistle too. Mary Bergen recorded it on her first, the album, that great album, Fedoga Stán, #1. I think she has Fedoga Stán #2 as well, the Tin Whistle album. And Tom Billy's is one of the great tracks from that. So, I mean, he traveled around, he used to travel around on a donkey, teaching the fiddle and playing, and he was a great musician. And he would have been around at the same time as Padraig O'Keeffe. And of course, you're going to know so many tunes called O'Keeffe's. And I guess Padraig O'Keeffe would be one of the people that is synonymous with Sliabh Luachra. Like, people just think about him as being kind of he spread the music and did so much for the music. He was the teacher of Dennis Murphy and the teacher of Julia Clifford and the teacher of hundreds of musicians all around the area. He was also a school master for a while. That didn't work out so well for him. And he didn't enjoy. I don't think he enjoyed that very much. He was really interested in the music and going around and teaching the music. And you can learn more about Padraig O'Keeffe as well easily all over online. There's so much about him, but he taught so many of the great players around him, spread the music, and he's credited with really, I guess, promoting the music of the area and popularizing it all over. So he had a huge number of students. Paddy Cronin learned from him. Julia Clifford learned from him. Dennis Murphy learned from him. Dennis Murphy's sister. Other sister, not Julia, they were from a big family, the Murphys, Bridgie Con Matt. They all learned from Padraig O'Keeffe. So I'll play a few of the tunes that they learned, and maybe let you have a listen as well. Paddy Cronin that plays that wonderful jig, The Boys of Cunnamuir. And actually, Akari and I had a lesson at the Willie Clancy Summer School last week with the great Maura O'Keeffe, and she taught us this tune, and we listened to Cronin's playing of it. Okay, so Mara had a funny story for us about that last week. She was saying that she would visit Paddy. So Paddy went to America, and when he went back to live in Killarney, she would go and visit him he was older, and she said it was very hard to get out of the house when you visit him, that he'd be there for a long time, and that some of the names, he put the name the Boys of Connemara on that tune, so he would often I guess put elaborate variations into tunes and really construct the tunes in his own way, and then sometimes he would put his own name on a tune as well. So I don't know if anyone knows that of a different name, but I've only ever heard it on that Cronin album and from Mara last week. So it's a lovely tune. They were mostly all fiddlers, weren't they? Oh, that's a good question. Was the fiddle the most popular? Wow. I'll get to that question in a minute. Thank you for that question. That's a really good question. I'll finish telling you about these fiddlers here for sure. These are all fiddlers. I'm a bit biased when I'd be showing this music too, because I love the fiddle, obviously, and I'd be listening to that more than anything else. Julia Clifford. So Dennis Murphy's sister, Billy the Waver. The Waver was his family, the Wavers, the Murphys. It's spelled Weavers, Weavers. So historically, they were weavers. There would have been many families called Murphy. So in trying to tell the difference between one family and another family, families would have names. So Bill the Waver and Dennis the Waver Jew, they would have been the Waver family, even though they were Murphys. And then Julia Clifford, there's some great recordings and great interviews and things coming out recently out of online, out of the ITMA and things like that you can watch and learn and listen to Julia. She's got some great stories and really tells a lot about, growing up in the time. I've got some of those linked at the end as well. One of the polkas that she plays that I love so much is I Looked East and I Looked West, and you can find that on her album. I think many people might know it. And I think the lovely thing about listening to Julia Clifford, especially, and Dennis Murphy, and is you can hear the music is lovely to listen to. It's very almost, I've heard people describe it as almost poetic. It's rather than just being played at a lightning pace for dancing. It's really sweet and beautiful to listen to as well. And even when they were playing up to dancing speed, apparently they were very nice and sweet to listen to like that. And Dennis Murphy, very famous. I think Dennis Murphy slide. Everyone learns that, or a lot of people learn that when they're starting off. But I'll show you some recordings of his in a minute too. Bridgie Kelleher was their sister as well, who's maybe not recorded so much, but I wanted to mention her because apparently she taught this fella Cornelius O'Sullivan, and I recently got a recording of his. Oh, there's Bridgie Kelleher and Julia Clifford together, and a great photograph. And then I was asking Brian O'Leary recently about this fellow Cornelius O'Sullivan that I had been listening to with him, and he was really good, and maybe not as well known or not known at all like these other people above. And I have a little recording that I want to play for you here now. I hope you can hear it clearly, and I'll come back to the next question then after that. Here I have it. Okay, so Akari, will you let me know if you can hear this or not? I hope you can.
In Canberra at summer 1955 at this fish, he, Conor Sullivan, Cornelius and Dennis Murphy played together.
Okay, so you can hear that lovely slip jig there, and man, it was amazing for me to hear that. And then I started asking about this fellow Cornelius O'Sullivan, how come O'Sullivan, and how come I haven't heard about this guy so good. And apparently he was really good, like just as good as Dennis Murphy and Judy Clifford and all of them. And but he emigrated to the US and I think became a doctor, and then and he just left. He didn't play anymore. He didn't play any more music, which is a great shame, a great loss to the music of the area. I think to the fiddle playing of the area. So there were apparently loads of other fiddlers around who may not have got the same level of fame as you know, Paddy Crone and Dennis and Julia and people who recorded, and their music was spread around. But there were many other great musicians around the area that were never recorded. So I'm looking forward to learning more about them in time. I don't really know that much at the moment. So the question, and it came up in the chat and it came up here as well, is Sliabh Luachra music only for fiddle players? And no, I think the box is the next biggest instrument that you fiddling boxes is typical of Sliabh Luachra. You would often have like and I think the most famous of those duets would have been Johnny O'Leary and Dennis Murphy together from earlier on, and they would have played an awful lot together for dances, especially for dancers, and we'll talk a bit more about them in a minute. But I don't know as much now about the accordion players or much at all. I have a list that I put together here of accordion players that I thought of. This was off the top of my head now, a quick think of what accordion players would be playing the Sliabh Luachra music, but I'm sure there are many more. So these are just a list in case you wanted to have a listen yourself, a list of names that you could look up and you could listen to them. There's Jackie Daly, of course, is from Kanturk, which is very near where I grew up at. Like all of these players here are great accordion players that play the Sliabh Luachra music. So I won't talk a lot about any of them because our time is short and a brief introduction, but I did want to give you that list of names, and there's so many more that could probably be added on there. But if you wanted to listen and hear the Sliabh Luachra style box playing, I think you could listen to these players and you get a good feeling for it. And of course, we've Johnny O'Leary at the start of that list there, and his grandson Brian there at the end of it, and they're great, great to listen to as well for the Sliabh Luachra music and the tunes. So Johnny O'Leary actually is a funny connection. I'm not sure about it, but my mother tells me that my father and him were supposed to be quite good friends, and Dennis Murphy as well. So which wouldn't be surprising because they're all from the same area there around Galan and Guineguilla. But by the time my father passed away when I was quite young, so by the time I would have had any interest in this, I wouldn't have had the chance to talk about it. So only just through my mother, she says that he would talk about Johnny O'Leary and Dennis Murphy a bit, and that they would have been friends when he was back in Guineguilla back in the day. So that's a nice connection. So Taka was wondering then, is Sliabh Luachra music, is it as good as Clare music? Because we know Taka loves the Clare music. And is it only slides and polkas? I like reels better, he says. So there's, the popular idea, I guess, is that Sliabh Luachra, they only play slides and polkas down there. But that's not true. We have a broad repertoire. And I wanted to draw your attention, and I have a website open on the tab here that I want to show you. It's very interesting in the ITMA at the moment. It's available, and I've linked this on the end of the slide so you can check it out yourself. But on the ITMA, you can see fiddle and accordion manuscripts of Padraig O'Keefe, and it tells you all about it. and you'll learn so much about the tunes. Other websites that I'd recommend everyone to have a look at. There's the Friends of Sliabh Luachra site, and these are all linked. Now that's kind of been, I think, they've made the Rocky Mountain site now instead, but there's still some great things here on that Friends of Sliabh Luachra site. I'd recommend having a look at it. There is sliabhluachra.ie, which is okay as well. I don't know. I think that the Friends of Sliabh Luachra site is actually, or the Rocky Mountain site seems to be a great resource for learning about the people and things. Scully's Music School, this is Owen Stan O'Sullivan, has this site going, and he's got great Sliabh Luachra tunes on there, and you can learn tunes very much like the site I was putting together myself for learning tunes, and I didn't realize this site was there at the time, so it's a great resource as well. And it talks about, tells you a bit of the background about tunes and helps you to learn. It's all up there for free as well. This is the one. This is a great one. TheRushyMountain.com. You can learn all about the people. There's Tom and Billy, but if you click on the people, you want to find all of these different people. There's Californians that we were talking about earlier on, and you can click in and you can learn about all of those some more. So I'd recommend doing that after, and I've shared them on the slide. So let me get back to this slide anyway, because Taka was wondering about the tunes, and I think we've made the point now that we're not only about slides and polkas, but the slides and polkas, though, one of the big reasons, as you can see, Yasko here asking, what about the dancing? What about the dancing? So Sliabh Luachra music was, dancing was hugely important in the area, and you know, people would come together for house dances and crossroads dancing and everything, and that was the social life of the area. And then one of the most famous set dancing places, I suppose, was Dan O'Connell's pub in Knocknagree. And there's a great link. I'm not going to open it now because it's going to take a long time to watch and to well, I guess I'll just show you the site. It's from that Sliabh Luachra as well. But there's a great video down here talking about Dan O'Connell's pub and what it used to be like. He opened the dance hall, and you can hear him talking on that video, and he makes some great points. And one of the main things he said that really struck me as being interesting and a great philosophy, and it captured the spirit of the whole area, I think, was never sacrifice enjoyment for perfection. So the whole point of the music and the dancing and everything was enjoyment and coming together, and it was more community and enjoyment than anything else. So yeah, he was very interesting man. He used to sell milking machines, and then he had this pub, and he noticed the dancing was taking off. He heard Dennis Murphy and Johnny O'Leary's duet, and I saw that there was an opportunity. He wanted to bring that life to his pub, so he built a big extension, and it was dancing. It was made for set dancing, and he would often have Johnny O'Leary and Dennis Murphy playing there, and then other musicians all the way up to Jenny. I don't know when it closed down, but I was there a couple of times as a child for sure, and played a few tunes there myself. But yeah, what a great place. So that was in Knocknagree. I think it's closed down now since he passed away, but the dancing was hugely important, a big part of it. So some listening suggestions, seeing as this is like an introduction to Sliabh Luachra music, and if you don't know, if you haven't listened much to Sliabh Luachra music before, I think here are some good places to start, to give yourself an idea of what the music is like and the sound of the area. The most famous album, without a doubt, would be the Claddagh Records Star Above the Garter. And recently there was a wonderful documentary on RTE the Irish radio and TV channel. It's like NHK in Japan, but RTE in Ireland. They had a wonderful documentary about this album. It's on a podcast called The Rolling Wave. So I linked that as well at the end of the slide. So I recommend listening to that because it gives you great background to the album itself, and they talk about the cover and they talk about all the music and the duets and the style of music and how it was recorded, and it's just lovely. And this is the number one album everyone I think would think of if you were asked, oh, what does Sliabh Luachra music sound like? I think you would have a listen to The Star Above the Garter, and it's Dennis Murphy and Julia Clifford, and they play some solo on it, and then they play duets on it, and they play in octaves a lot, the two fiddles, and it's great. It's a lovely sound. So I wanted to play a small bit for you, just so you can hear it, the sound of it, for people who haven't heard it. I'll put on a little bit. Okay, or there's the Valley Desmond polka. Okay, there's lots on it. It's a great album. And then other things to listen to, probably the Kerry Fiddles, the very famous one as well. And then there's if you're into the box playing, there's the Trooper, Johnny O'Leary's Trooper, which is a fantastic album to listen to as well. For tunes, one of my favorites recently actually is this Dennis Murphy album. Hard to track that down, but I think you can find it if you look carefully. It's not being printed anymore, but if you search online, you probably won't find it on in shops to buy, but you might find it. Let's say you might find it somewhere where you could download it. That's a lovely one. One of the ones I learned from that recently was this Fitzgerald's Hornpipe. And one of the important things I think when you're listening to these albums, you'll notice they're not like we've said many times, they're not all slides and polkas. I think the slides and polkas were a very important part of the music, and we love them, and the dancing, especially the polka sets and all the sets. You'd be playing a lot of polkas during those. But when you listen to these albums, there's such a mix, and slow air playing was actually very, very a big part of the Sliabh Luachra tradition as well. Put on Queen Éire Nail here and you can hear a bit. And I've heard it said recently that Padraig O'Keefe, as the teacher of the area, taught and was very passionate about the slow airs and taught so many people the slow airs, and maybe that's why the other music, the faster music, is so poetic and musical, is that there was this emphasis on airs, as well, that people would play the slow airs a lot. And Matt Cranich brought out an album full of slow airs. Actually, I should have put this on here as well. I can stick it on the slide before I share it. I think it's called Éist Shall or Éistig Shall. Listen for a while, and it's all slow airs that have been collected up. So air playing was a very important part of it as well. Star Monster Trio here, you can see Julia Clifford and Billy Clifford, her son, and John, her husband there, and the box and the fiddle and the flute. That actually, I love that. I love Julia's solos on that album, the Star of Munster Trio. She plays the Knocknabow polkas and other very sweet. Yeah, just lovely playing. And then you've got the more modern recordings, like Paddy O'Connor has a good few. He's a great scholar of the traditional of Sliabh. He'd know a lot more now than I would. Like he's studied it properly. He's not an amateur Sliabh Luachra enthusiast like me. He's a professional Sliabh Luachra enthusiast. So there's some great things on the ITMA website from Paddy O'Connor there that you can look up. And then yeah, it's everywhere. But his recordings are fantastic as well. The music is great, so I highly recommend listening to those. One that came out recently last year, or sorry, maybe 2 years ago at this stage, or 3 even, was this one. Brian O'Leary and Colin Guilfoyle, box and flute, and gorgeous music as well, all from the area. Where the bog is, you can see the rushes here again in the turf. I suppose the land isn't much good for farming, but is good for turf. But lovely music on this, lovely slides and polkas, jigs and reels, hornpipes. Great music. So strongly recommend having a listen to those if you have some time and if you're interested in exploring the Sliabh Luachra music a bit further. So some of the resources you can have a look at. This one, rushymountain.com, highly recommend that. Already showed you. You can learn all about all the players and you can learn a lot about the area. So that's an interesting resource to look at. And here I've just put some reference materials for you to take a look at as well. So that's the old Friends of the Sliabh Luachra site. It's still there and there's some great stuff up on it. ITMA, the collections, that book is, I'm sure you can get it on Amazon or wherever. That's a great book full of tunes. And then the Rushy Mountain, I think all the ones we talked about here. And then there's a few resources, like you can find the old magazines and things like that will tell you a lot of detail kind of about the families and the people of the area and how things were. Which is interesting, yeah, interesting to read as well. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen and I'm going to unmute there and see if I can answer some people's questions. And if I can't answer the question today, I'll be sure to look it up and find out for you if I can. Oh, where are these CDs available? Are they available in Amazon? So some of them are. It's a good question, yeah. Some of them are available in Amazon, or on, like, you know, even if you search on iTunes or Apple Music or maybe Spotify, you'll find a lot of them on there. But there are some of them, like the blue Dennis Murphy one, that is hard to find. But I do know that someone told me a few weeks ago they were able to find it online and download it from somewhere. So maybe if you do a bit of searching, you might find that as well. Do you think you are a Sliabh Luachra man or a Cork man? Oh, that's a good question. Wow. I guess if someone asked me where I was from, I would say I was from Cork. But like we said earlier on, Sliabh Luachra kind of, it's not defined geographically very well or at all. So I would consider myself, in the style of music that I play and that I enjoy, I definitely would be the Sliabh Luachra style of music. But I would certainly consider myself a Cork man, and certainly not a Kerry man. It's funny, we have a big rivalry in Cork and Kerry. We have a big rivalry when it comes to Gaelic football and things like that. So even though my father was a Kerry man, I would certainly consider myself a Cork man. And if Cork were playing against Kerry in football, I would very much be supporting Cork. Yeah, the red and white. So it's funny that, yeah, there's a friendly rivalry. There's a lot of fun. The town, Ballydesmond, is right, or the little village, I guess, more than a town, is right on the border. It's right on the border, so half of it is in Cork and half of it is in Kerry. So, and that's where a lot of this music would be played. And I guess on the day of a football match or something like that, you'd see half of it would be red and white for Cork, and the other half would be yellow and green for Kerry, the kingdom. So that's an interesting question. Oh, who is that? I can't really. Interesting to hear that you're a half Kerry man. I'm not sure I said that now. Yeah, I guess. Well, my father was from Kerry, and my mother was from Waterford. So they met and settled down halfway in Cork. So I would consider myself 100% a Cork man. Yeah, 100% Cork. But that's that's one way to look at it. Yeah, half Kerry. I guess they're not too bad. They're not too bad. I have cousins, first cousins, my father's brothers or sisters' children who are all fully 100% Kerry then. So it's a good rivalry. But the music is shared, and the Sliabh Luachra music is shared across the border. So that's the spirit of it. So is there any other questions, or feel free to unmute yourself there and turn on your cameras if you'd like as well. If you have any other questions or any other subjects you'd like to chat about.
質問がマイキーにありましたら、日本語でも構いませんので、ぜひマイクをオフにしていただいてもいいです。チャットでもいいので、ぜひいい機会ですので聞いてみてください。
Yeah, but some of the people I've been talking to a lot recently about this kind of thing, about the area and the music and the musicians. Some people are very, very knowledgeable, like kind of historians of the area that would know an awful lot. So like I was asking Brian a lot about it, Brian O'Leary, and he was telling me he picks up a lot of information from Mikie McAuliffe. I'm not sure if people would know Mikie McAuliffe or not. He's a fiddle player from Kerry, and he you know, he's dedicated his life to collecting music, and he knows all about the history of the area and everything. So and the likes of Paddy O'Connor there, and people really, there's a lot of resources coming out of ITMA, the Irish Traditional Music Archives. So that's a great place to get started on reading and learning a bit more about the area for anyone who is interested in finding out more. But if you wanted to visit, like a Carrie on her Google Maps, if you wanted to visit when you go to Ireland and you don't know where to go to hear good Sliabh Luachra music, I think the main places to check out first would be Castle Island and Ballydesmond and Knocknagree, and maybe Abbeyfield. Up as far as Abbeyfield, they would have good Sliabh Luachra sessions there. And Newmarket, Scully's in Newmarket on a Monday night. So it's interesting these days. I guess everyone is locked in. It's similar to Japan, you know, with the COVID-19. They have not reopened the pubs. People were expecting at home that the pubs would be open again just this week, but the government prolonged the closure until August 10th. So I think a lot of people were excited to return to playing some sessions, and unfortunately that's not possible yet again. So what about here in Japan? Is anyone playing any sessions these days? real sessions. I don't know. No. Mikie, are you playing any sessions these days?
No, I didn't go to sessions these days.
Yeah, neither did I. Okay, so well, one thing that people might be interested in that you can check out as well. I could show people the website that I set up. This website as a way to share to share the music of Sliabh Luachra as well that I grew up with. So let me just, maybe I'll show that seeing as we have a few minutes to spare. This website, the irishfiddlelessons.com, and it's just a website full of tunes. So if you wanted to learn any fiddle, but there's more fiddle tunes. I'm planning to build some whistle tunes, but I've been a bit slow with that. Mostly fiddle tunes, and you could learn a few tunes from that if you wanted. So you just click on it and you can find the notes here, and this is just a YouTube playlist, so you can flick down and you can find you know, the polkas and things like Bridgie Conmats that we were just talking about. So you'll see that the clip of the tune, how to play it slowly, and then down here you would see, you could click on any of these and you'd find the score, the notes of the tune as well. So let's say I was interested in whatever polka, I looked east and I looked west, I click on that and it should open the score. So you can, if you're someone who likes to learn by reading the music, you can look at that, or you can click it. You can change the layout too, so it looks easier. That's not a great way to read it, but you can look at it like that if you want and print them out. Sure. So slowly starting to build this, but one thing we have been doing that's been enjoyable, it's been fun for the last while, is we've been doing these monthly online workshops and sessions. So you can see a picture of it here, and go back to that there. So it's just people coming together on a Zoom call like this, but we use Google Hangouts and or Google Meet, I think it's called, and we get together and we play tunes, and so we don't talk so much like today, and we sometimes we put things in the chat here, the session chat, and people add in their different things. And sometimes people come to join us, like we had Aidan Connolly come to join us there 1 week recently, and Brian O'Leary came in to join us, and people from all over have come to join in on the Saturday. So if you feel like coming along, even just to listen or to play along anytime, you're very welcome. And if you wanted to sign up for that, you can just click on that there, and it asks for your email. It's all free of charge and just for fun. So you'd be very welcome to come along if you're ever interested in that.
Mikie, there is one question from the audience, and then about the kind of I guess polka is from Eastern Europe, but where is the slides from?
Oh, really good question. Yeah, I read something recently. I'd have to go and research this a bit more, but that's a good question about them both kind of coming from the same source, but then changing out into polkas and slides, because sometimes you would hear a tune that is played as a polka, but then you might hear it as a very similar tune played as a slide with a different rhythm. But I think just recently I found something about that. I don't have a good answer for that question right now, but I do know, I think, where we can find out the answer to that. It's ITMA again. There was let me just see now. I was reading it very recently. I think it might be on that ITMA site. Let me put it into. I'll put it into the chat just here, but I'll make sure to link it. I think they mention a bit about the background of the tunes, and also when I was reading about, they found a new manuscript recently, or well, not a very old manuscript, one that was kind of before Padraig O'Keefe's time. That was before, it was like back in the mid 1800s, and that one had a lot of tunes that were not slides and polkas, and it was kind of before the slides and polkas became so big in Sliabh Luachra. So it was interesting to know that like that's kind of more of a recent development, that slides and polkas were not always very popular in the area, you know, that it kind of even just maybe 150 years ago they were not popular at all in Sliabh Luachra, which is very interesting. But yeah, I don't have the exact answer for where the slides came from, the origin of them, but that's something interesting to look up. Yeah, for sure. Great question.